So here I am driving at 4:15 in the morning. I'm heading to a spot that's about an hour and a half away. And I'm doing something that I never ever thought I was going to do. I'm going hound hunting. What? Now I'm pretty sure that a lot of you viewers are pretty shocked by the idea that I would even go do this sort of thing. I mean, heck, I'm a guy who started a petition to end hound hunting here in the state of Vermont. The local press has been covering the story.
A viral TikTok video is sparking debate over hound hunting in Vermont.
The video posted last week has already hit more than 12 million views.
Channel 3's Kevin Geist breaks down the debate over hound hunting and property rights.
The video, shot by Goldshaw farm owner Morgan Gold, has rekindled a conflict over property rights in Vermont when it comes to dogs in pursuit of their prey.
I feel like I'm completely powerless based on the way the laws are to say that I don't want those folks on the property.
I worry about the stress that it puts on my animals and the risk that it creates for my animals.
When dogs go running across someone's property and they're howling and barking and baying, that it causes a ruckus.
Look, other folks can do what they want on their land, but it's a choice that I want to make for my land.
There's not a violation in statute for dogs chasing a bear or chasing a raccoon and going onto somebody's posted property.
And I'll also tell you, man, I'm not opposed to hunting. It's hounding, really.
But people have been using hounds since before the Romans.
I appreciate that. People had slaves back when they were Romans. Doesn't mean you should be having slavery either, right?
Sometimes I wish we did.
Wait, what?
Back at the Goldshaw farm, Porter says the viral conflict was overall handled appropriately. Gold decided to post the video of his interaction with hound hunters to social media to spark change. There's now a petition with over 80,000 signatures to make some changes to the current hound hunting law.
And have been downright vilified in online hunting groups.
You think that everybody is in love with you when actually everybody hates you.
Everybody hates you.
Everybody hates you.
Because everybody hates him.
This is why everybody hates you, Jill.
It hurts. It hurts a lot.
The man goes around and videos day-to-day things on his own property and markets it on YouTube.
Right. All right. That gives us some clarity on who this guy is.
He tries to put himself across as a Vermont farmer. He has free-ranging geese and free-ranging chickens and a guard dog, as far as I know. That's all he has for animals on his property. It's kind of hard to say he's a farmer. But we believe in cows and horses and pigs.
Yeah.
That's a farm.
What do you think his motivation was for not wanting you there? You know, a little leeway to speculate here.
The hound hunting. He does not agree with hound hunting, even though supposedly he hunts himself and he does not want hound hunting.
Okay. All right.
Even though he has a guard dog that is actually a trained killer on his property.
So given the fact that all this stuff is going on, one might ask, why would I, a staunch anti-hound hunting proponent, be getting up at the butt crack of dawn to go hound hunting? And well, my friends, it comes down to this. I've never been hound hunting, and when I listen to the arguments from all of the hound hunters, the thing I consistently keep hearing from them is that this is a way of life for them, and that this sort of experience, it's some sort of tradition that they absolutely cherish. And so I feel like I owe those folks something. Even though it's something I personally find distasteful, I ought to go and walk a mile in their shoes. Someone actually reached out to me a couple of days ago with the offer, say, hey man, do you want to go do a ride along with us when me and my family go hound hunting? And so I decided to take them up on it. The spot that they go is pretty far from where we are in Vermont. As the crow flies, it's actually not all that far. It's also up in northern Vermont, but it's like northwestern Vermont versus where our farm is in northeastern Vermont. And given the way that Vermont works, you really can't get there from here. And so I'm driving through winding back roads to get there. But I'm curious to see what my morning adventure holds for me here. One of the downsides to the experience I'm about to go through is I am not allowed to bring my cameras. So I can bring my cameras in the truck while I'm with you guys and I'm driving to the meetup spot. But once I get there, the cameras are gonna have to go off. So I'm just about making my way to the meetup spot here. And like I said, unfortunately, I can't bring cameras with me. So this will be pretty much the spot where we all part ways. Wish me luck, you guys.
3 days later.
So I met up with my guide and his wife in that commuter parking lot, and we got in their truck and we started to drive, and we ended up meeting a bunch of their friends at an old cornfield a couple of miles away. They were really nice, they were friendly, they were a couple, I don't know, I guess probably roughly about my age, lifelong Vermonters. My guide had said he'd been bear hound hunting for 20 plus years, and so it's something he just had been doing a long time, and he was super passionate about it. I mean, he had all of the gear, he had a truck kind of fully set up and ready to go for hound hunting with the kennels in the back and big GPS mounts on the dashboard. Really, like any good hobbyist, he took his hobby very, very seriously. I could tell right away he was a good dude, like no question about it. We got along pretty well. You know, as I was driving around with him and his wife, we had way more in common than not in common. We spent most of the time talking about raising ducks and geese and chickens, and I was sharing some of the knowledge I had with them about trees. They were sharing some of the knowledge that they had about tracking with me. To be quite honest, it was not a bad way to spend a Saturday morning at all. Now, just to be very clear on a couple ground rules I set before I went out with them. Number one, I wasn't personally hunting. I didn't have any dogs I was controlling. I didn't bring any firearms with me. And if I had come across a bear, that would have been their business, not mine. I was simply doing a ride along to experience what they were experiencing and to try to figure out why are people so crazy about this activity. Number two, there were no cameras. You know, I had asked my guide if it was okay to bring cameras, and he said he preferred if I didn't, which I really did want to respect. Again, my goal wasn't so much to make another YouTube video as it was to get out there and just experience hound hunting and see why people like it. Number three, I was doing my absolute very best to reserve judgment. I was literally more than an hour and a half away from my farm. My guide assured me that we had permission from all the landowners within the area in which we were hounding. So my general reservations were set aside so that I could have this experience of seeing what it was like to go hound hunting. Or I guess technically hunting with hounds. And so the way it worked was we basically went to a large cornfield in the middle of nowhere, set the dogs loose, followed the dogs around. As we were following the dogs around, we actually weren't that far from it all. Like, you know, maybe 20, 30 yards at the most. Definitely a distance where I could say, okay, I believe that they have control. And we basically would walk around a cornfield, sweep the field, check for bears, check for damage from bears. Because, you know, one of the criticisms I've received as I've criticized bear hounding is bear hounds are important because that bears eat the corn for a lot of the dairy farmers in our area. And so the only way that the farmers can mitigate that financial damage is to bring in these bear hounders. And believe me, in the area where I am right now, so I'm in the back corner of our property, and we have a dairy farm right down there. There's another dairy farm right over there. There's another dairy farm with a large cornfield way over there on the other side of my pasture. So the idea that we are right in the middle of prime bear habitat absolutely was proven as I went out with this bear hounding group. And you know what? As I went out there, I did see bear damage. It wasn't massive, it wasn't gigantic, it was there though. And so we would go sweep a cornfield. Then when we were done sweeping that field, we'd get the dogs back in the truck. Oftentimes the dogs would sit on the bed of the truck, their noses out looking for a scent. The dogs were most definitely wearing those GPS collars that I talked about in previous videos. My guide, he actually had 2 collars per dog just in case anything went wrong. So I would 100% guarantee that he always knew where his dogs were. But I would also say I don't think he 100% always had control of them. He would set his dogs loose and they would go deep into the forest, you know? So we would start at like the edge of a cornfield, but then we'd go into thick forest and hills. You know, Vermont is a state made up of area all like this. You'd have streams, places where somebody couldn't go in their truck. And so the dog would be going, and what we would do is in their truck, drive down to the next road to try to cut the dog off before it got to the next parcel of land. My guide and his friends, they had CB radios, and so they were communicating amongst each other to sort of triangulate where their dogs were. The number of dogs that were loose at any given time varied. It ranged from probably 3 to 6 at any given time. I think my guide brought 3 dogs of his own, then he had a couple of friends who each had a dog or 2. And even at one point, I did meet up with the farmer who owned most of the land that we were on, and he was very encouraging. He clearly wanted these bear hounders there. And so I feel after spending almost 5 hours with this crew, going bear hounding out in this remote part of Vermont that even if I might not have walked a full mile in another person's shoes, I at least got a couple hundred yards out there. And it really got me thinking a couple of things. Number one, I would say I get it. I get why people think this is a sport. I get where there's skill involved. I get where there's effort involved. Number two, another thing that I learned is I feel like my guide very much impressed upon me with the fact that he actually could control where his dogs were. So the thing that guy Butch was telling me the other day.
Your point is you can't control where your dogs go if they're tracking something.
I can't control the bear. The dogs are taught to follow the bear.
Right, but if you can't control the bear, then you can't control your dogs if the dogs are controlled by the bear.
Wasn't exactly true. Where my guide actually had a counterpoint of view, where he was saying that, no, you can control your dog. And for me, what that means is, if you were to actually change the laws here in Vermont, where it went from having this very vague notion of what control of a dog meant, to actually having true control of your dog, where you could call them off a scent and where you could call them to you by using the tones on their collar. According to my guide, that actually seemed plausible. So while I find bear hound hunting distasteful, and I still don't think it's for me, and I absolutely don't want it happening on my farm, maybe there is a way that we could ultimately coexist here. Maybe Fish and Wildlife and legislature changed the laws as well as the interpretation of the laws so that you did have to have your control of your dog, and dog owners would be prevented from allowing their dogs to go on posted private property. Maybe that could make a difference versus putting all the responsibility and accountability on me, the private property owner, and still allowing me to get harassed and harangued and disrupted by those hound hunters. So I absolutely do believe that there is some sort of middle ground that could be worked out. Now, while theoretically that middle ground could be worked out, I also know that the other side of this issue is, I don't know, becoming quite militant against me. You know, specifically, the hound hunting lobby, yes, there is a hound hunting lobby, has actually set their sights on me. They're actually actively lying about me and what I'm trying to do here. They're saying ridiculous things like I'm aligned with animal rights groups, when the reality is this is all just me, a rinky-dink duck and goose farmer who just happens to have a YouTube and a TikTok making some noise about some issues he's facing around his farm. And the second thing, which is giving me doubt in terms of how are we gonna get to a good resolution here and some sort of compromise, is that I feel like whenever I bring this issue up with most folks who are hound hunters, the criticism isn't so much about me saying I should have my private property rights or not. They just sort of disregard that, and there's a lot of whataboutisms where they're focusing on tradition. They're focusing on the idea that, hey, I didn't grow up here. I see just a certain sense of entitlement coming from a lot of hound hunters in the state, as well as hound hunters out of the state, of folks saying that, hey, they can't control the dogs and I should just shut the heck up. And the idea that someone like me would actively try to create change in the state makes me a Karen.
I'd like to speak to the manager.
Which means being a Karen means that you're seeing problems on your farm and you're actively working to change and address those problems, so be it. Now, the one interesting development that's happened in all of this was, I was actually supposed to have a meeting between myself and Butch Spear, the guy who came on the farm the other time, as well as Commissioner Lewis Porter, who is the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife. And we were actually supposed to have that meeting very soon. But the late breaking news is that Commissioner Porter has resigned and he's stepping down. That means that the commissioner post is up and open. And so that means I'm shifting the focus of my campaign away from trying to get his attention, because let's face it, he's walking around like a duck with bumblefoot. And instead, the person whose attention I need to get is this guy, Governor Phil Scott. You know, so far I've called his office, I've written emails, I've made requests through various folks. I tried tweeting at the dude, and I've gotten radio silence despite the fact that our petition has more than 85,000 signatures at this point. And so I'm gonna ask you, the Goldshaw Farm viewer, for just a little bit more help. And what I want you to do is I'm gonna leave a link down below where you can email Governor Scott. And what I'd love for you to do is write Governor Scott a message encouraging him to meet with me, Morgan Gold of Goldshaw Farm of Peacham, Vermont. Ask him why he's against protecting private property rights of farmers like myself, and ask him why he's not actively trying to encourage a compromise between a landowner like me and the hound hunters of our state. I don't exactly know where this one's gonna go, but it continues to be interesting, and I will continue to share what's happening with you all. So thanks for watching, and thanks for the support, you guys.